Welcome to Tenacity with Sonia C., the podcast where entrepreneurs, founders, and ambitious professionals come to learn from those who have walked the path, navigating challenges and achieving success. Whether it's thriving in business, pivoting, scaling for growth, fundraising, or finding work-life balance, dealing with loneliness, adversity, or overcoming personal struggles. Our guests share the insights and strategies that have empowered them to level up. I'm your host, Sonia, and let's get started. My guest today is Bob Furniss, a name many in the customer service world will recognize. But this conversation isn't about awards or accolades. It's about fatherhood. It's about love that learns how to show up. And it's about what happens when the quietest voice in the room becomes a warrior. When Bob's daughter, Keisha, was diagnosed with breast cancer, he and his wife, Susan, did more than just fight alongside her. They turned their heartbreak into a mission. They founded Warrior Princess, a nonprofit focused on educating young women about early detection. In this episode, we talk about what cancer teaches you about connection, how a father found his voice through the grief. Hi, Bob. How are you today? Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Sonia. I'm so happy to be with you.
I'm so excited to be with you. This is a conversation that's so close to my heart, and I can't wait to get into it with you. So, obviously, today we're going to be talking about breast cancer. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It is something very close to my heart because I am a breast cancer survivor. But in your case, we're going to be talking about your beautiful daughter who unfortunately did not survive her breast cancer journey, but it had a huge effect on you. And really, this is what we're here for today, to have this conversation. So before we dive into your advocacy work, I want to start with something personal. Can you take us back to the moment you first heard the words, Keisha has breast cancer? What did that moment do to you as a father?
So there's sort of two answers to that. I was away in California doing business at a conference, and my wife called me at about 7 o'clock at night. I was at a party, and it was unusual for her to call me at 7. Normally she would text me. And so I said, hello. And she goes, I need to talk to you. And so I said, well, let me get outside. And I went outside to talk with her. And she said, Keisha is having pain in her arm and in her back. You know, she's been sick for a couple of weeks. And I'm afraid she's having a heart attack. So I'm taking her to the emergency room. So she took her to the emergency room, and they came into from they did some tests that had not been done. And they came in and then told my wife and my daughter that it looked like she had cancer in her lungs. So my wife talked back to me about 9:30, 10 o'clock that night in California time. And she told me that horrible news. So I went and got on a plane. I flew home. I missed company meetings and customer meetings. Everything stopped at that moment. And so I got into town the next morning. When I got home, my wife was on the phone with the cancer doctor. She had actually had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma about 15 years earlier and is a survivor. We went into the doctor's room, and I can tell you, Sonia, that I still remember the moment when the doctor said, we knew the doctor because he was the same doctor that treated my wife, Dr. Schwartzberg. And I can still remember the moment that he said, it looks like that you have cancer, breast cancer, and it's in a lot of places. Oof. And how did I react? I remember the three of us hugging and tears, and sort of everything else he said in that appointment, I can't remember other than that. Now, I became the advocate. I went with her to, I'm a weird dad. I went with her to her cancer appointments on the ones where they were making decisions. Not because I didn't think my daughter and wife could not make decisions, but because being a consultant for so many years, I've learned to ask the third and the fourth and the fifth question, right?
And that's important.
And I think that I talk about that in my book about the importance of having an advocate with you, somebody that when they tell you something, that's going to help you ask the next 3 or 4 questions so that when you walk out, and somebody that's taking notes so that when you walk out and
Yeah.
get home and you're dealing with the reality. So
Yeah.
I got better after the first visit.
And what stage was your daughter?
So unfortunately, she was in stage 4,
Oh,
which
wow.
is unusual. It's there's some weird statistics about women who are in 25 to 45. Our nonprofit focuses on women 25 to 45.
How old was your daughter?
She was 30.
Okay. Okay.
So um, there's some unusual statistics. The statistics say that first of all, you like 80% of women find their own spot first
I
and then
did
go
too.
to a
Yeah.
doctor. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. And if you find something, you got to say something. You can't be afraid
Yes.
of it. So we did not focus on how we got there. Once we got there, we made a focus as a family that we're going to focus on living and not
Mm,
regretting, right? But she definitely missed some signs. She said, I
mm,
wasn't going to a gynecologist because I was not sexually active and I didn't think I needed to. She wasn't doing monthly breast exams. But her regular doctor later said, I've changed my protocol. I always ask women now if they are going to the gynecologist in their 20s. And if they're not, I ask them if they
mm.
would like for me to do a breast exam. So
Yeah.
it's very important that you catch it early. But the statistics that I was talking about is women who are in that age group tend to find a higher percentage of the people find their cancer in later stages because they feel something. They're like, they don't even think about it being breast cancer. I've talked to college students that they go, well, I have a spot, but
Mm.
I'm too young for breast cancer. And you're not. So
Yeah.
tend to find it at higher stages, not at stage 4. That was unusual. And
Yeah.
focus on that, Sonia, but we did talk about it over the 4 years. Cancer took her life at 34. And for that 4 years, she was a warrior. And
Yeah.
she had grown up being called a princess. So she became Keisha Warrior Princess. And
I
that's the
love
name of our
that.
nonprofit.
That's so cute. I love that. And I love everything you're saying. And I 100% agree with you because I was 38 and lucky, I don't know why this happened to me, but it did. And my doctor even said it's very rare. I actually found my lump because I was having a numbness feeling. You know, when your foot falls asleep and you feel like
Right.
the ants,
Right.
I felt the ants underneath my armpit. And it's very rare for that to happen. And because I was having that feeling, I'm like, what? I'm like, what's going on there? What is this? And that's when I found the lump. And I waited no time. Within a week, I was
That's
at my
awesome.
doctor's office.
Every woman
And
should follow your path.
yeah. And because I was 38, my doctor's like, well, you're too young to have a mammogram. We're just going to do an ultrasound. But I was in that ultrasound table within a couple of days.
That's
And
great.
then they found it. And within a couple of days, I was having, well, no, the day I had my test, they were like, nope, you got to do a mammogram because there is a mass there. And that's when I found out that I did have breast cancer. I didn't know the stage, but then like within 3 days I had my biopsy, and then like within a week I was already at the hospital meeting my oncologist for the first time. So it happened so quickly. I got diagnosed at the very end of September. In November I was having my first surgery.
Wow.
So within
That's
that
great.
time, I had all those tests, but it was like the speed of time, like finding it and doing something about it. And you're so right, because I know way too many women who found lumps years prior, got scared, didn't do anything about it because they're just like, oh, either I'm too young, it's nothing, or "Oh, I don't want to really know what it is." And then by the time they find out, they're at stage 2, 3, or 4. I was at stage 1, and I think I just really got really, really lucky.
And it's got breast cancer. We hear so much about breast cancer in America, but it has a 96 to 98% survival rate when it's found
Mm,
in
yes.
stage 1.
Yeah,
So
here I
right,
am.
it's one of those things where that's what we want to happen. We want
Yeah,
women to do the breast exam, to find something, to go in, not to find anything. First of all,
yeah,
that's an unusual nonprofit. I want you to follow us and read about us and do this, and I hope nothing ever comes of it. But
Yeah.
what we know is about one out of every eight women in America will get breast cancer. So we want you to be the person that finds it early, because finding it late, it's just a different battle. Now, her doctors were amazing. She was on 13 different different regimens
Wow.
of meds. And she was such a powerful woman. She took over the job of being the advocate. She would always ask, she just wanted to live. It
Mm,
was it was her superpower. When she was a young child, she had ADD really bad, really throughout her life, and not ADHD, but ADD, so attention deficit. So if I walked into a room when she was 8 years old, 7 years old, and said, "Put on your shoes, put on your socks, put on your socks, put on your shoes, get your book bag and get your books in it and meet me in the car." I just told her four too many things to do. She
mm,
could do one thing at a time really well. We learned that.
yeah.
And that actually became her superpower, because her one thing was to live. And so I tell that story because if you're listening today and you're in
That's
stage
so
two or
sad.
you're in stage three or even stage four, the focus that you put on living should outweigh the focus that you put on being sick.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you're not going to throw up. That doesn't mean you're not going to. I'm not trying to negate the negative, because she
Yeah.
lived through all of that. She would throw up for 10 minutes at a time, get up and wipe her mouth off and go, "Well, that's better on the outside than it was on the inside."
Mm.
So she was just such a warrior during that time that um, we eventually started a nonprofit uh, in her name called Keisha Warrior Princess. The website is warriorprincess.org, and there's resources there. There's also, you can go on, if you're listening today, you can go on and click on the button at the top of the website and request one of these shower hangers. It hangs on your shower and reminds the woman to do her monthly self exam and tells you in
Mm-hmm.
the back. So
Yeah.
that's one of our primary focus for our nonprofit, is to just get people, women, to do those two things, because it's such a powerful impact.
Yeah, and it's interesting you're saying that because my sister called me last night. We were just a quick conversation, and somehow this came up. Oh, my mom had had her annual mammogram, and I actually asked her, I'm like, "Do you like check yourself regularly?" And she's like, "No, why would I do that?" I'm like, "Because you have somebody in the family who had breast cancer. Like
Good
you're
for you.
technically at risk." And she's like, "Well, like I don't even know." I'm like, "You just have to like put your arm up when you're in the shower and like work it in." And I'm like, "You'll know." You'll, if there's something there, you'll find it, you'll know it's that easy. And she was kind of like, I never really thought about that, but you're right. I should check. So it's even people who come from a history of family breast cancer don't even think about like the importance
Oh,
of regular
this
checkups.
needs to be on your sister's shower also.
Yes,
I'll
I
send
think
you
so
some. It needs to be on
too.
your sister's
Yes,
shower.
please.
And it is just amazing. And on our website, there's a couple of videos that shows you how to do the breast exam. So she can go there also. That's available in a lot
Yeah.
of different places, but you can learn how.
So there's so many things I want to talk to you about. I'm like, oh my gosh, are we going to have enough time for all of this? So there's one topic I really want to talk about, but before
Okay.
we get there, you've mentioned the word advocacy a couple of times, even though we just started this conversation, and I want to talk about that a little bit because that was one of the things that I struggled with was having to advocate for myself because I went to every appointment on my own. I live by myself. I'm on my own. So I felt like I had to advocate for myself. But here's the thing. At the time, I didn't know that I had to advocate for myself. I sort of figured that out a little bit later on. And knowing what I know now, I get angry at myself that I didn't advocate for myself. So for people who have family member who are going through it is one thing, being a family member that's going through it with someone who has it is a different experience, and we are going to talk about that. But what is your advice for women or men, because men also get breast cancer, that are going through it, and what is the importance of maybe like not going through it on your own so that you can have someone help advocate for you so that you don't make decisions that you're going to regret later on?
I think the biggest piece is to find a friend or find a, a family member, or your best girlfriend, somebody that can go with you, at least at the beginning, at least
Yeah.
at the front end of that, of finding out, that front end of making decisions, and maybe invite them back on the
Mm,
dates when you're going to make big decisions. Like
yeah.
we're about to decide whether or not we're going to have surgery or not. Okay, so I would show up at that one. I'll tell you a quick story. I showed up at one that we walked in and sat down, and the doctor came in, and it was a new doctor, and they started talking, and all of a sudden I realized I was in a gynecological appointment with my daughter and my wife. And I went, hold on a minute, what kind of doctor are you? And he told me, and I went, I think I'm going to step back out into the waiting room because I don't think I want to go through this conversation with my daughter. But the advocacy is, it's just asking another question. It's
Mm,
just listening to the doctor through the lens of being there. It's obviously, you have to be, you have to be willing as the woman to ask someone. And or here's what I also found out. People ask, is there anything I can do for you?
mm-hmm.
What people should ask is, hey, do you have anybody going with you to your appointment? Would you mind if I come and tag along and just be an advocate? I'll keep quiet, but I'll just take notes
Mm,
and be an advocate.
yeah.
Because can I come over and cut your grass? Can I come over and bring you a meal? Because we get overwhelmed with, in every situation like that where somebody goes, is there anything I can do for you? Well, no,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm fine. So ask that question. I even in the book talk about saying, hey, I'm going to be at your house in 20 minutes with an ice cream cone, or with a milkshake. What kind do you want?
Yeah.
Don't ask them if they want a milkshake. They can put it in the refrigerator. So the advocacy happens in the doctor's office, but it also happens throughout the survivorship and
Mm-hmm.
the the follow-on visits. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, like, I think everybody's different. And for me, I felt like bringing someone along, or I sort of kept my family at arm's length. Only when
Yep.
I felt like I really needed them, I would bring them along. Or
Yep.
I had a surgery where I just stayed home by myself, and after I realized, man, I should not have done that because it was such a major surgery. But the reason why I did that was because I didn't want to feel like I had to take care of other people. I just wanted to sort of worry about me for a second,
Yeah.
because people around me felt like I could see that they felt uncomfortable. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to do. And that made me feel like, oh, now I can't just focus on me and take care of me. I sort of have to be like worrying about how to make them feel. Do you think that's a fair?
I do think that's fair. And in fact, my daughter called her best friend the day after we got home, and Amy, who's now on our board, on our nonprofit board, said that Keisha was so afraid. Keisha was like, "I'm going to be okay, Amy. I'm
Mm,
fine." She was like apologizing that she had to tell me. So while
yeah.
Keisha was open to us going, and to be honest, I don't know that I ever asked. I probably should have. It was so important.
Yeah,
I didn't go
no,
to
for
all of them.
sure.
My wife went to 90% of them. I went to like 10% of them. But I do think what you're talking about, and I think it has a lot to do with with who the person is that you're going to ask to be your advocate, or you're going to
Mm,
ask to tag along with you. Uh,
yeah.
I've got, we've got a friend right now that was a little bit younger than Keisha that has breast cancer. And I would say, after talking with her, she probably fits more in your realm. She probably fits more in, I'm good, I'm by myself, I'm fine. And I had this conversation, and she ended up taking somebody with her for some of her visits after that. So
Yeah. I wish I had, to be honest.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about being a dad or a parent of someone who is going through this, because I think it's important to have this conversation, and this one of the reasons why I invited you on, because every time I do this, I always have like a survivor or someone who is going through it still. And but I think it's important to talk about the other side of breast cancer, which is the people who are going through it with you and how they're processing their feelings and what are they having to do to comfort that person and maybe not doing. Walk me through what it was like for you as a parent.
You always feel like you can fix just about anything for your daughter. We had a very special relationship. Keisha, I talk about this in the book. She, through her ADD or whatever it was in her makeup, she was a little bit younger than her age, is how
Mm,
I would describe her. So, but as a dad, I was asking the dad questions. I was asking, are you being careful when you get in the car at night? Are you being careful? Do you have gas in your car? Like I was asking all the dad questions. But
mm-hmm,
it hit me afterwards that I should have been asking this question. Are you talking about breast health with your gynecologist or your healthcare provider, your regular
mm-hmm.
doctor? Are you doing breast exams? I wasn't asking my wife those questions either. So how did how did it affect me? It was it was lonely to not be able to fix what her problem was. So what I did is I said, so where would you like to go? Now, we both knew the reality of stage 4, but we didn't sit around and talk about I'm going to die
Mm,
or not. We
mm-hmm.
talked about it through the lens of we both knew what was going on. We knew what stage 4 meant without a miracle, how bad it was. So we put together a bucket list of things that she wanted to do. So she was a huge Luke Bryan fan. I mean, she knew Luke Bryan's dog's name, is how bad she was. She was a huge Luke Bryan fan. So over the 4 years that she was sick, she went to see Luke Bryan 5 times. I was able through there's a great story in the book about um, going on Facebook and putting up a post and somebody connecting to somebody who connected to somebody who connected to somebody who got us backstage tickets, and she got to meet
Oh,
him.
wow.
She got to meet him. She wanted to go to a Steelers football game. A friend of mine got us sideline passes, and one of the players that before he came off took off his pink cleats and signed them and gave them to her in her wheelchair.
Oh,
We
wow.
went to the Colorado to see the Aspens. So I say that because as a father, I couldn't do I couldn't fix the problem, but I could do things around the problem to make her life better during that time.
Yeah.
And we had friends that said she lived through more stuff in 4 years than they lived in their whole life. So
Yeah.
and and that may not be possible. It may only be possible to do one thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it is possible to advocate, to be an advocate, and then also to just put things in front of the person. She would walk out of Disney World and go, I'm going to Luke Bryan in 5 weeks. And I believe, Sonia, that that helped her live. I,
Yeah.
I believe that she had something to look forward to. So the next day when she was sick and throwing up, she was still thinking about going to Luke Bryan in 5 weeks. I got to make it.
Yeah.
I got to make it work. Does that resonate?
Yeah, for sure. I love it. Men often stay silent or feel helpless during a health crisis in the family. What gave you the courage to speak out, not just privately, but publicly, about your daughter's battle?
Well, my friends and my family would tell you that I've never been quiet. So
That's the start.
probably my personality is the start. But what I found is, so I've been a professional speaker and consultant for 20 years, and I, I've written a couple of books. I think I'm pretty good at telling a story. And
Mm,
so she was telling her story on Facebook and on Instagram, and was talking to others. She was in she was doing mentoring of people who were just found out. And so I asked her, is it okay if I tell your story? Can I talk about your story? So she gave me
Mm,
permission, and that turned into what ended up being an article in the newspaper called uh, the question every dad should ask his daughter.
mm,
And that led to a nonprofit, which eventually led to a book. So I just think it's in my DNA to want to tell a story. But I do remember multiple times, especially in the bad times,
mm,
saying, are you sure you want me to tell this? Are you
yeah.
sure you want me to talk about this? And one of the things she told me not too many weeks before she left um, was, hey, Dad, please keep telling women this story, my story, so that they don't do what I did. And so, because I don't want anybody to go through what I've gone, and I don't want anybody to go through what you've gone through or mom's gone through as
Yeah.
parents. So, or my brother, I have a son who's 38ish, 80, 85, whatever that is, 40. He's 40. Uh, so
Yeah. One of the most moving parts of your story is how you turned your pain into purpose. Can you share a specific moment where you realized this isn't just about our family anymore? This could help save others.
So there's a couple of moments like that, but I'll give you one. So not too long after, so I've been advocating for and talking about it and doing writing and stuff, but the decision to make it something bigger was uh, I was at a bar. I was in Boston for business, and I finished up early at the customer site, and I looked online and realized that I was only about 4 blocks from the Cheers bar. So I went to the Cheers bar and sat at the bar and relived uh Cheers, the show and all that. And a couple
Mhm.
sat down beside me, and the one we struck up a conversation, and the woman asked me, she said, so how many children do you have? And there was this 1,000-minute moment that flashed before my eyes. Do I bring down the conversation and say I have a daughter who died of breast cancer? Do I just tell her about my son? What do I do here? And I
Mm.
decided to tell her I have 2 children, one who's, and I talked about my son, and then I said I have a daughter who just recently passed away from breast cancer. And I told her a little bit about the importance of self-check, the same thing I started with. And her husband looked at her and said, we have two daughters who are in their 20s. Do you know whether they're doing their self-checks and
Mm.
talking to their gynecologist? And the wife said, I do not, but I bet you I do before I go to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
And when I got back into the cab to go to the airport, it occurred to me that just telling her story would hopefully tell a woman, some women would hear her story and go, geez, it's been a long time since I've done a self check. Or
Yeah.
I haven't done one in 6 months. I need to do one. Or
Mhm.
I've never done one.
Yeah.
Just telling her story might change that perspective, that it's important that you do that so that you find it early, so that you're not in the statistics that she's in.
Yeah, it blows my mind. And maybe because I am survivor, so I think about this a lot, but completely blows my mind that women still don't check themselves for possible lumps and things like that. Like that women are not regularly checking themselves. Like I don't understand why women wouldn't do that. Like I'm in Canada and the statistics here are you said in the US is 1 in 8, in Canada is 1 in 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
So
I think there, so, we've heard a lot of women tell us these stories. Um, Someone on my board had a situation where she went when she was really young and had a bad experience and
mm.
didn't go back for 10 years, right? So she had a
Yeah.
bad experience at the gynecologist and didn't go back for 10 years. So I think there's various reasons. We've talked through a lot of them, but you just don't be that statistic. Like,
Yeah.
the statistics are so wildly skewed towards finding it early and living and being you and still having a life, as opposed to not finding it until it's later and it being somewhere else. Most people don't know that breast cancer can be in your lungs, it can be in your hips, it can be in your bones, it can be
Spine.
in
Yeah,
your, it
everywhere.
eventually went to Keisha's brain and to her liver, and
Oof.
it was in a lot of places. Uh, and that's the reason why you have to find it early.
Yeah. There must have been, as a parent, a lot of moments of fear, frustration, anger, questions. Was there ever a point where you felt like giving up, and how did you find your way back to hope?
There's a crisis of faith story in my book, uh, and I don't know that I've found my way back, and it's been since 2017. Uh,
Wow.
and we could spend another 20 minutes talking about the reality of that faith shake and how it's still not healed. Uh,
Mm,
I don't. I, I I think that grief is much worse than anything that I've been through in my life. And there's a word for when a woman dies in a marriage, the man becomes a widower, and and the opposite happens, is a widow. But there's no word for a woman for a child dying, and
mm-hmm.
I think that's because a child dying is there just isn't any word for it. It's
Yeah.
the worst thing in the world. It's just so awful. So I don't know that I've found how did I stay connected? And I'm sorry I'm bouncing around a little bit, but
No, it's okay.
you ask a tough question, which we talked about being important. Uh, I don't think I've come to grips with her being gone
Mm,
as much as I was along the way. When I was in go mode, do things,
yeah.
it was okay.
Yeah.
We were gonna go another week. We were gonna, and now it's no longer there, and it's just overwhelming. And um and again, I think you talk to people, you talk to others.
Yeah. Well, and you're also giving back now to that community and sharing her journey. That almost kind of keeps her memory alive too,
It
right?
does. It does. The book that I'm sure you're going to mention or you're going to put on the show notes, called On the Blue, is the story of her life. I started out writing a memoir, but it's sort of a mix between a memoir and an auto
Mm,
and a biography of her and how she lived and how she taught me as a father to do things. One of the things I found on her one of her journals, which she gave me access to before she passed away, she goes, here's all my journals I've been keeping. You
oh,
probably want to
wow.
write about something.
Oh.
Uh, and I found a drawing of a little fish, and it said, just keep swimming. And I'm like, I've heard that somewhere.
Mm.
Where have I heard that? So I Googled it, and it's from the movie Finding Dora.
Finding Nemo. Oh, Finding
Finding Nemo.
Nemo.
It's
Yes.
Dora
Yeah.
from Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
And it just keeps swimming. And I think it's one of the most profound statements that I read from her was just keep swimming, just keep
Mm,
pushing, just keep going. And so that has been my bar for how I keep going. It's
mm-hmm.
not fun on Sunday sometimes or Saturday sometimes to go to a community event and talk about breast cancer because it all
Yeah.
comes flooding back. But if I can help
Yeah.
save one woman, if my wife and I can help save a group of women from going through what we've been, a family from going through what we've been through, then we definitely want to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, what have you learned about resilience, not just from your daughter, but within yourself? What do you wish more parents or caregivers understood?
What I've learned is that don't spend as much time spend time with your relative, your loved ones, as if they're not going to be there forever.
Mm.
Um, I think back to the times that I could have gone on one more trip. I could have done one more thing. I could have said less. And then there's a whole thing where you do as a dad, oh my gosh, she had ADD and I'm a type A, keep a list person. And we bounced off of each other so bad. Like she would, I just don't understand why you can't make a list and hold to it. And she would go, because I have ADD. And I think about those times and I wish I could take all of those times back because in reality, as a parent, what I learned is her what was a disability growing up was her superpower
Mm-hmm.
when she was sick. So
Yeah.
look through the eyes of the disabilities, the tough things, the child that she wasn't maybe in the it crowd. And I used to think, man, I wish she was with that crowd instead of celebrating where she was, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So celebrate where your kids are, celebrate who they are, celebrate their differences as well as their likes, and be a part of their life as much as possible.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. I love that. Bob, it was so nice to have this chat with you. I've never really spoken to someone who comes from the opposite perspective of breast cancer, and I can see that you're very um in tune with what your daughter went through, and you're compassionate. And tell us a little bit about the charity, the work that you're doing, and what you're hoping to achieve. I know we touched on it a little bit, but before we wrap up this episode, I really want to I want to honor that so that it brings the episode to a lovely end.
Okay, that's great. So if you go to warriorprincess.org, you can go to our website and read about our story. There are resources there to help learn how to do self exams. There are You can order a card. We love to send cards to groups. So if you're in a women's group or you're doing something for this month and in October, you're doing something for breast cancer awareness and you would like to have some mailed to you, we'll mail you 100, we'll mail you 500 if you've got the ability to
Mm-hmm.
distribute them. And we also, our focus is on women 25 to 45, probably 40 now because they moved the bar back down from mammograms to 40. But our nonprofit focuses on just getting this story out and attempting to get women to do those two things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the focus. We've distributed about 65,000 of those cards in a
Wow.
3-year period. So that's the nonprofit. It's focused on providing resources and then also offering support through the card and other things.
I'm airing this episode during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So, just like you, I think awareness, early detection saves lives. It saved my life. If I had just left it and not even seen it, I don't know if I'd be here today. I'm
Right.
so grateful that I have my life. So I do think that that part, I think that there's a lot of charities out there that focus on treatment and post treatment and things like that. But I think more of this preventative self examinations needs to be more at the forefront so that women are not 25 and saying this isn't going to happen to me. Like, that awareness really needs to happen. So before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to leave our audience with?
No, just the book is available on Amazon. It's called On to Blue. You can look it up by searching On to Blue Bob Furniss, and you can find it in the search bar. The book takes you through about 5 different categories, sort of before cancer. So how she grew up, uh, the diagnosis, the reality of treatment, the reality of who she was, and then it's peppered with little Keisha-isms, I call them. They're little things that she taught me about life. And
Mm,
so I tell a story and then I talk about what I learned from that story because she taught my wife Susan and I so much about how to live life. Both if we went back and looked at when she was young, we realized that we weren't listening. And then during those 4 years, we began to listen, and we realized that she was just so filled with wisdom, like
Yeah.
just keep swimming. How simple that is, but what an impact it is on somebody who's going through the worst time in their life.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for sharing your journey, being authentic about it, and just being willing to share. It's a hard topic to talk about. You don't usually hear dads coming out and talking about their journey with their daughters, but I'm so thankful that you did, and I'm so appreciative.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have access to your audience. And if we can just find two or three women out of this that start, whether it's your sister or whether it's other
Mhm.
women that start doing these, then all of this would have been worth it.
Yeah, I totally get it. And I'm going to need some of those cards. I'm going to start giving them
Okay.
out.
Okay. All right. We'll make sure you get some.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sonia.
I want to thank Bob for joining me today. Bob's story is a reminder that strength doesn't always sound loud. It often looks like quiet persistence, late night research, and holding space when you don't know what to say. Whether you're a caregiver or someone simply trying to hold it all together, there's something here for you, the courage to keep showing up even when you don't have all the answers. And that's a wrap. To our listeners, thank you for joining me on this journey of learning, growth, and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and connect with our community on social media. I'd love to hear your feedback, so leave a review and let me know what topics you'd want to explore in future episodes. Remember, the future belongs to those who embrace challenges, adapt with tenacity, and keep pushing forward. Keep growing, keep pivoting, and most importantly, stay tenacious in your pursuits. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to bringing you more insightful conversations in our upcoming episodes. This is Sonia signing off, but as always, keep chasing your dreams with tenacity.